The first thing I remember is the sound of metal screaming as it bent. Not shattered, bent. Like the universe itself had decided to fold around me. I slammed into the arena wall hard enough to knock the air out of my lungs. Gravity plating hummed beneath my boots, stabilizing just in time to keep me from crumpling into a heap. My rifle skidded across the polished stone floor, clattering to a stop several meters away. Across the arena, the alien warrior straightened to his full, terrifying height.
He smirked.
That smirk wasn't born of cruelty alone. It was confidence, experience, the quiet satisfaction of someone who had ended hundreds of fights exactly the same way. The crowd roared, dozens of species packed into tiered stands that wrapped around the circular arena. Scales shimmered. Chitinous limbs clicked together. Bioluminescent eyes flared brighter as they drank in the spectacle. A human on his knees. Again. My name is Captain Elias Rourke, 3rd Expeditionary Fleet of Earth. And I was not supposed to be here. Beginning. The Galactic Concord didn't invite humans often. When they did, it was usually because something had gone wrong. This time, it was a misunderstanding that spiraled into a diplomatic nightmare. A border skirmish between human surveyors and a Carrick's patrol vessel had ended with 3 dead Carrick's warriors and 1 wrecked moon outpost. The Carricks demanded restitution. Their culture didn't recognize apologies. They recognized strength. So when the Concord invoked right of equilibrium, Earth was forced to comply. 1 champion, 1 arena, 1 fight to decide whether humanity would be fined into irrelevance or allowed to stand as equals. The Carrick's champion was named Veilcor, a veteran warlord whose species evolved on a high-gravity death world. He stood over 3 meters tall, plated in natural armor that shimmered like obsidian glass. His muscles were layered like braided cable, each movement efficient and terrifyingly precise. I'd watched his combat footage before stepping into the arena. He never lost. I was chosen not because I was the strongest human or the fastest. I was chosen because I had survived impossible odds before. Because humans had a reputation the Concord didn't fully understand yet. We adapt. Still, as Veilcor cracked his neck and rolled his shoulders, I couldn't ignore the reality. He outweighed me by at least 4 times. The horn sounded. I fired first. Middle. My opening salvo hammered into Veilcor's chest in a storm of kinetic rounds. The impacts sparked and flared, throwing up shards of alien armor. He didn't fall. He didn't even slow. He charged. The ground shook beneath his feet as he crossed the arena in seconds. I dove aside, feeling the wind of his passing tug at my armor. His fist slammed into the stone where my head had been, pulverizing it into dust. I rolled, came up firing again, targeting joints this time. 1 knee, the shoulder, the neck. Veilcor roared, not in pain, but delight. He caught my rifle mid-burst and crushed it in one hand like a toy. Then he backhanded me across the arena. That was the hit that set me into the wall. Now I was on 1 knee, lungs burning, ears ringing. Warning lights flashed across my HUD. Cracked rib, partial armor breach, left arm servos lagging. Veilcor approached slowly, deliberately. He wanted the crowd to see this. He wanted me to see it. You fought well, soft-worlder, he rumbled through his translator. But you are finished. He raised his massive blade, an executioner's weapon forged from a starship's hull plating. The smirk returned. That's when I laughed. It came out rough and breathless, but it was real. The arena went quiet. Veilcor hesitated, just for a fraction of a second. Confusion flickered across his alien features. Something funny, he growled. I planted my boot against the cracked stone and pushed. Getting back on my feet hurt more than the impact. Pain flared through my chest like fire, but I welcomed it. Pain meant I was still alive. Still in the fight. You ever notice, I said, wiping blood from my mouth, that everyone thinks humans are weak right up until we stand back up? Veilcore snarled and charged again. This time, I didn't run. I stepped into him. At the last second, I triggered my armor's final contingency, something Earth's engineers had slipped in quietly, something the Concorde had never seen. Adaptive load redistribution. My suit locked down, rerouting power to my remaining functional limbs. My bones screamed under the strain, but my right arm surged with borrowed strength. I caught his blade. The impact drove me to one knee again, but this time I stayed upright. The crowd erupted in disbelief as a human hand stopped a Carrick's execution strike. Veilcore's eyes widened. That's impossible, he hissed. I grinned through the pain.
Yeah.
We get that a lot. I twisted, redirecting his momentum. Veilcore stumbled just one step, but it was enough. I slammed my shoulder into his chest and triggered my suit's mass amplifier. For a brief, glorious moment, I weighed as much as a dropship. The alien warrior crashed to the arena floor with a thunderous boom. Silence. No one had ever knocked Veilcore down. He roared in fury and rolled to his feet, faster now, more cautious. Gone was the smirk. In its place burned something sharper. Respect. The fight changed after that. He stopped playing. So did I. We traded blows that cracked stone and shattered armor. Every hit from him felt like being struck by a landslide. Every strike from me was calculated, precise, aimed at weaknesses his species didn't realize they had. Humans studied Carrick's physiology. We knew where their balance failed, where their neural clusters converged, where pain meant something. Veilcore clipped me again, sending me skidding across the arena, but I rolled with it and came up moving. Blood dripped from my chin. My vision tunneled. The crowd was screaming now, not cheering, not jeering. Witnessing. Veilcore lunged. I sidestepped, grabbed his wrist, and drove a powered knee into the underside of his armored chest. The shockwave rippled through his body. He staggered. I didn't give him time to recover. I pressed the attack, fists slamming into joints, elbows into gaps, every movement fueled by adrenaline and sheer refusal to fall again. Veilcore swung wildly, desperation creeping into his movements. I ducked under his blade and slammed my fist into the base of his neck, exactly where our data said it would hurt most. He collapsed to one knee. The arena froze. I stood over him, chest heaving, armor cracked and smoking. For the first time in his long, violent life, Veilcore looked up at someone else. I raised my fist, ready to end it. Yield, he said. The word echoed across the arena. Ending. I lowered my arm, not because I was weak, because I was human. The Concorde judges rose from their seats, stunned. 1,000 conversations erupted at once as the implications rippled outward. The right of equilibrium was clear. Victory granted parity. Veilcore pushed himself upright slowly and faced me. There was no shame in his posture, only acknowledgement. You should have stayed down, he said quietly. I shook my head. That's not how we survive. He studied me for a long moment, then inclined his massive head, a Carrick's gesture reserved for equals. The crowd erupted, not in mockery,
in awe.
Later, as medics hauled me toward the exit and my vision finally began to blur, I caught one last glimpse of the arena, of alien faces staring at a truth they could no longer deny. Humans weren't the strongest. We weren't the biggest. But when the universe knocked us down, we got back on our feet, and that terrified everyone. Earth wasn't fined. We weren't sanctioned. We weren't pushed aside. We were invited. The Concorde rewrote its assumptions that day. New clauses were added. New warnings quietly circulated among warrior cultures. Never assume a human is defeated just because they're on the ground. As for Veilcore, he sent me a message weeks later. A simple one. If you ever fight again, I hope it is beside me. I smiled as I read it, because I knew something the rest of the galaxy was just beginning to learn. The alien warrior had smirked. But humanity? Humanity always stands back up. They carried me out of the arena on a grav stretcher, lights blurring into long white streaks above my head. Every breath burned, but I was smiling anyway, because the galaxy had changed. In the days that followed, the Concorde's halls buzzed with uneasy debate. Records of the duel were replayed again and again across 1,000 worlds. Analysts slowed the footage, dissected every movement, every moment I should have stayed down but didn't. They finally understood what brute strength couldn't explain. Humans weren't dangerous because we hit harder. We were dangerous because we refused to quit. The Carrick's delegation withdrew their demands, not out of fear, but respect. Their warrior code was amended for the first time in centuries. A new line was etched into their martial doctrine. Endurance is a weapon. Veilcore visited me once before he returned to his war fleet. He stood at the foot of my recovery chamber, massive and silent, like a living monument. You broke something in me that day, he said at last. I chuckled weakly. Pretty sure you broke a few things in me too. He let out a low, rumbling sound that translated as laughter. Perhaps. But you taught me this. Victory is not decided by who strikes first or hardest, but by who rises last. He placed a Carrick's war token on the table beside my bed, a symbol given only to those considered unbreakable. Then he left. Weeks later, Earth was formally recognized as a Tier 1 species. Human advisors were requested. Human soldiers were studied. Human survival tactics were quietly incorporated into alien training programs. And somewhere out there, on distant worlds with heavier gravity and sharper claws, warriors began asking a new question before entering battle. What if the human gets back up? As for me, I returned to active duty, patched, scarred, and very much alive. When new recruits ask me what it's like to face a monster 3 times your size, I give them the same answer every time. You don't win by being stronger, I tell them. You win by standing up one more time than they expect. Because in a universe full of gods, giants, and ancient horrors, humanity's greatest weapon has always been simple. We endure.